you want to try test your mic? I can barely hear you. Hold on. Let me try to put our volume up. Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Aloha mai kako. I'd like to call to order and welcome you all to the meeting of the Committee on Budget and Finance for Wednesday, January 28, 2026. The time is now 10:47. Can we call roll?
Sure. Trustee Akaka.
Eo.
Trustee Akina.
Aloha mai kako.
Trustee Alapa. Yes. Trustee Galataria.
Eo.
Trustee Kahele.
Present.
Trustee Lindsay. Present. Trustee Souza. Chair Waihe'e is excused. Vice Chair Ahuna.
Aye.
You have 8 present.
And that gives us quorum. Aloha kako. This meeting can be viewed via live stream on OHA's website at www.oha.org/livestream. For those joining us on Zoom to testify or listen, please note that we are using the webinar platform rather than the standard Zoom meeting format. As an attendee, you will be able to watch and listen to the proceedings. If you wish to testify on a specific agenda item, please follow these steps. Number 1, raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak. Number 2, we will change your status from attendee to panelist when it is your turn. This may take a few seconds, so we appreciate your patience. Number 3, as a panelist, you will be given 5 minutes to speak. You have the option to turn on your camera and unmute yourself to provide testimony. 4, when recognized to testify, you are able to speak to the agenda item that is currently being considered. If you begin to address another topic, the chair will issue a warning. Should you continue to speak on matters outside of the agenda item, your speaking time for the agenda item will end. And lastly, number 5, once you have finished testifying, please mute yourself and you will be returned to your attendee status. In addition to this, we would like to ask everyone to please silence your mobile phones. At this time, joining the trustees today is our COO, Kaponui, KSK, Keishan, Kekina, along with numerous support staff.
Aloha mai kako, mahalo nui trustees. This morning, our administration is supported by our interim administrator and chief executive officer, Summer Silva, our investment director and interim CFO, Ryan Lee, our budget chief, Grace Chen, our general counsel, Everett Ota, our associate general counsel, Roselle Agag, our director of communications, Bill Brennan, and our IT systems engineer and administrator, Daniel Santos. Mahalo nui.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaponui. Next up is Roman numeral 2, approval of minutes. I'd like to ask for a motion for the approval of minutes for June 2nd and January 14th, if it's possible. Is there anybody willing to?
Yes, so move.
Thank you. It's been moved by Trustee Galataria. Any
No
discussion?
testifiers, Chair.
No discussion? Is there any testifiers on this agenda item?
No testifiers, Chair.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to call for the vote.
Trustee Akaka.
Aye.
Trustee Akina. Trustee Alapa. Trustee Galataria. Trustee Kahele. Trustee Lindsay.
Aye.
Trustee Souza. Chair Waihe'e is excused. Vice Chair Ahuna.
Aye.
8 yes votes.
For Roman numeral 3 under new business, we have an action item. But before we take up that action item, this action item is the approval of a $500,000 budget for the Permitted Interaction Group, PIG, established by BLT Action Item 25-18 on December 18, 2025, for the purpose of negotiating the official position of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs regarding the U.S. military land lease leases scheduled to expire between 2028 and 2031 with the United States Army, United States Air Force, United States Navy, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. At this time, is there anybody here wishing to give testimony?
Yes, we have Jermaine Myers.
I'd like to call up Jermaine Myers to the board. Go ahead, Jermaine. Thank you.
Aloha. Aloha, Honorable Trustees. My name is Jermaine Myers. I'm an OHA beneficiary and Nanakuli Hawaiian Homestead lessee. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide testimony on Action Item BF 26-01, the proposed $500,000 allocation for a permitted interaction group to negotiate OHA's position regarding U.S. military land leases expiring between 2028 and 2031. I want to be clear from the onset. My concerns are not about engagement, and they are not about protecting Native Hawaiian rights. My concerns are about fiduciary responsibility, legal authority, and the appropriate use of trust funds that belong to the Lahui. First, this is a significant use of beneficiary trust funds. $500,000 is not a small amount of money. These are trust funds held for the benefit of Native Hawaiians, funds that could directly support housing for our kupuna and families, access to homesteading support, health, education, and economic stability, legal advocacy where OHA has clear authority and standing. Before committing $500,000, the threshold must be very high. Clear justification, clear authority, clear outcomes for beneficiaries. In my view, that threshold has not been met here. Second, OHA does not own or control the military lands in question. The lands subject to these lease renewals are state public lands, and the authority over those lands rests with the governor, the state legislature, the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Those are the entities with decision-making power. OHA does not own these lands. OHA does not approve or deny leases. OHA does not sit as a required decision maker in the renewal process. So I must ask plainly, what exactly is OHA negotiating and with whom? Third, OHA is not guaranteed a seat at the table. Despite the language being used, OHA does not have a guaranteed seat in federal, state, military lease negotiations. Recent reporting and public records make this very clear. The real power lies with state executives, legislators, federal agencies, and the military. OHA may submit comments or testimony, but that is not the same as being a negotiating authority. Allocating $500,000 to, quote, negotiate without a secured role risks spending beneficiary funds on influence without leverage. That is not a strategy. That is hope, and hope is not a fiduciary plan. Fourth, OHA's track record raises serious equity concerns. I want to raise an issue that many beneficiaries feel deeply. When the Lahui mobilized to protect Mauna Kea, the Kia'i stood with no OHA legal fund, no OHA financial backing, no OHA litigation support. Yet the Lahui organized, showed up, and ultimately stopped the telescope project. Similarly, during the DLNR final environmental impact statement processes, beneficiaries opposed the FEIS without OHA funding, without OHA resourcing, without OHA institutional backing. And again, the Lahui was successful. So beneficiaries are asking a fair question. Why is $500,000 available now when OHA lacks authority, but not available when the Lahui is directly defending Aina, Vai, and Iwi Kupuna? Fifth, this sets a troubling precedent. If OHA is willing to spend large sums of trust funds without land ownership, without regulatory authority, without a guaranteed decision-making role, then where does it stop? What prevents future boards from allocating even larger sums to issues where OHA's role is symbolic rather than substantive. That is a dangerous precedent for a trust institution. In closing, I urge the board to pause, reconsider, and deny this allocation until OHA's legal authority is clearly defined, a formal seat at the table is secured, beneficiary priorities are demonstrably advanced, and comparable resources are committed to Lāhui-led protections of aina and rights. Trust funds must follow authority, accountability, and direct beneficiary impact. Anything less is inconsistent with OHA's fiduciary duty. Kia kua pu. God bless all of you.
Thank you, Jermaine. At this time, I'd like to ask for any other testifiers here?
No other testifiers, Chair.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open this up for board discussion before we take on anything. Is there anybody would like to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Trustee Chair Kai Kahele.
Thanks, Chair Ahuna. And I appreciate the opportunity to, as the chair of the negotiating pig on military leased lands, to bring this action item in coordination and collaboration with the administration to the board and the trustees and the general public for its feedback. You know, trustees, over the course of our lifetime, you know, we face only a few moments where the decisions that we make and the actions that we take will shape the history of OHA, our Lāhui, and this state for years to come. This is one of those moments. It is a significant budget request because it is the most consequential use of our former Crown and government lands that will affect the future generations of our Lāhui and the Office of Foreign Affairs. Native Hawaiians in our Lāhui have never relinquished the rights to our Crown and government lands, and we will never. And the lands that are currently used by the United States military for the last almost 65 years is a once-in-a-generational opportunity for the Native Hawaiian community and the broader state of Hawaii and its citizenry to weigh in on this issue. On December 18th, this board approved the action items that established a negotiating pig. And this board directed that pig to achieve 6 measurable objectives. It additionally tasked that pig within the first quarter of 2026 to bring a budget request to the Board of Trustees. That is what is in front of this board today. The opportunity for the non-PIG members to provide feedback and input to this action item, as well as the general public, is an important discussion to have. The action item funds 3 primary objectives. 1, advocacy; 2, communications; and 3, the establishment of a diverse technical advisory group made up of subject matter experts from across the spectrum to provide the permitted interaction group and ultimately the Board of Trustees the best information, the best diverse viewpoints on this issue, so that OHA can formulate its position to negotiate and be at the table on this issue, to convey that to our federal national policy leaders, the Hawaii Congressional Delegation, as well as other key critical members of Congress that will draft and adopt the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Authorization Act that could potentially open up a pathway for a land exchange for these lands with other federal lands that are here in the state of Hawaii. The advocacy component of this action item empowers the advocacy team to continue the communication, education, and empowerment of our Lahui throughout the Pai'aina. And they've done a great job so far, and there's a lot more work to do. There's a lot more communities that are requesting OHA continue these community presentations, and the advocacy team will lead that. It also opens up the pathway for the advocacy team to engage with Washington, D.C. and the Congress, where federal policy will have to be authorized if a land exchange with the state or potentially a future lease will take place. It also potentially allows advocacy to work with a national legal team in Washington, D.C. Because currently, as of today, we do not have a Washington, D.C. bureau chief or a deputy bureau chief or any presence in Washington, D.C. that is advocating for OHA and the Native Hawaiian interests that we serve. And so partnering with a legal team there is going to be very important, especially one that has the relationships on the House and Senate Armed Services Committee with member offices on the Hill, but can do that through an indigenous Native perspective and worldview. The communications allocation of the budget is the majority of where the request is. And that will be led by the communications team and through an RFP process, the opportunity to develop a up to 30-minute documentary on this issue that will be broadcast and rebroadcast across mainstream media over the course of the next year. It'll also allow the communications team to take portions of that documentary and push that through every mechanism and medium of digital and social media and multi-platform communication strategy over the next calendar year. It's well-timed because of the 50th anniversary of the first landing on Kaho'olawe and the significance that effort 50 years ago made. And it's ironic that we're dealing with this almost very same issue today regarding live fire, military lease lands, and what that means. The third piece is the technical advisory group that will not only come from the island of Oahu, but could potentially come from participants statewide. And that takes resources. It costs money to fly people in, to host workshops, and to engage with those individuals that will be part of the technical advisory group. I would argue when it is established, probably the most diverse group of individuals that OHA will ever be able to assemble on this particular issue. It will also take that technical advisory group and this board to Kaho'olawe in 2026. For some of us who have never been there. I personally have never been to Kaho'olawe. We will get to see Kaho'olawe from the perspective of the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission, as well as the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana. And that is important because the viewpoints are different. But that will allow the OHA and our technical advisory group to ground itself on this particular issue. And the negotiating pig feels that this calendar year, as messaged by the governor's office in public statements they put out concerning the National Defense Authorization Act, that language is going to happen this year. So if we do not do this, who is? No one else will. No one has the resources, the reach, the capability, the credibility, the constitutional and statutory authority to do this. And it's time that we dedicate the type of resources that is necessary for this effort. This budget request sends a message to our Lahui that we are serious. This is not just a small amount of money we are throwing at this effort. We are throwing a significant amount of resources. There are safeguards and mechanisms in the action item to ensure that those resources are spent in the most prudent way possible with multiple checks and balances. It also lapses the day before the November general election because we could have new trustees and we could have new PIG members. So the PIG by design dissolves on November 3rd, 2026, and all unspent funds are returned to the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund by November 3rd, 2026, when this action item would expire. Finally, I'd also just like to add a comment. Back on June 30th, 2025, we passed the biennium budget for the next 2 years. That was $135,138,500,000 for the most important issue of this generation. I think is well worth it and is a very important way for us to spend our precious trust resources on an issue that will have long-standing consequences for future generations. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee. And just for your information, members, in our packets page, starting from page 5 of 11, the proposed budget is in there. You can read all about it. Everything is in, it's spelled out. So they're in our packets. With that, Trustee Hulu Lindsay, I see her hand up. Trustee Hulu.
Thank you. I want to say that I do agree with our chair as far as the need for us to outreach. I am not in agreement with the amount of money that we're asking for. We can either take it back to the PIG committee, which had no discussions on the amount nor the budget, or I can amend the motion item right now. I personally don't agree that there should be $260,000 spent on a video for this project. We have a lot of Hawaiian organizations, Hawaiian Council, CNHA, the civic clubs that have helped us and can help us so that we would all come together to advocate for this very important issue, and I agree with him. But the money is too much. We can use it on other places in our budget. So that is just my mana'o.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Chair. I have a question. Can we call up our interim CEO up to the table? Hi, I had several phone calls, and I mean, I just don't want it to sound like we're the ones doing this. I had calls stating that in the beginning, when we started our community meetings on these military land leases, I believe one of the beneficiaries emailed us a possible budget plan. So for me, my question is, didn't this idea of a budget come from our beneficiaries?
Sorry. Thank you for the question. I believe even the composition of the permitted interaction group is a product of all of the community input and beneficiary input that we've received to date since announcement of what was an impending condemnation threat that hasn't been entirely removed, that is still very much on the table, but a conversation also about the consequences of either entering into a new lease or participating in sort of a land exchange negotiation. The idea that OHA, with its constitutional mandate, with its trust asset resources, with its affirmative obligation to advocate in the interests of our Kanaka beneficiaries. The idea that we would sit this out or that we would not participate in a meaningful way that allocate sufficient resources that meet what the community is asking for in terms of agency to help uplift the voices of Native Hawaiians and their place in this conversation. does not, I don't think it aligns well. If we were to do something less, would align well with our mission, with our charge, and with our affirmative obligations. And so we have heard from more than one beneficiary that OHA must engage, OHA must use its its state agency character, its constitutional mandate to do affirmative advocacy in this subject.
And one more just quick question, I just want to recall my memory. I believe Professors John Osorio, Dr. John Osorio came in and talked about possible video.
A documentary.
A documentary that costs 200 to 300,000.
Which this board approved and funded, which also tells the story of our Crown and government lands and affirms, our obligation to be funders, to participate in that kind of advocacy, to ensure that those efforts are uplifted and broadly disseminated. I think also these commitments are really a response and a confirmation that we've heard what our beneficiaries have told us in all of our listening sessions, and that we are translating that feedback into actual deliverables. It's one thing to go out into community and to afford people the opportunity to get their opinions and comments on the record, and to do either very little or to delay doing something with that feedback. I think the formation of the PIG and the amount of resources that this board is being asked to contemplate to empower the PIG to make good on the feedback that we've been receiving and to make good on our constitutional mandate on one of the most consequential decisions of our generation is in alignment with what we should be doing.
And one last thing, Uncle Walter Reedy is a very respectful beneficiary, and he came to that table specifically asking for us to support the 500,000. Can you give me? He mentioned something about Ko'olawe and how they had to stop the bombing. Did it involve any type of fees or any administration money to be at the table to accomplish this type of task?
No.
I don't have. I'd be hypothesizing. I don't want to speak directly to facts that I'm not fluent in, but I will say that no doubt that if more organizations who had similar mission and value alignment with the original protectors of Koho'olawe, if they were accompanied by resources, if they were accompanied by advocates, if that movement was enlarged sooner, faster, because they were empowered to do more, I think nobody would disagree that would not have been welcome support. So this is an opportunity to learn from, I think, the advocacy of the past, to improve upon it, to augment it, and I think we heard from a beneficiary earlier about the perception that OHA was sidelined or elected to be sidelined when the Mauna Kea issue was evolving. And all I will say to that is that our proactive, our affirmative step in this space is an opportunity to make good on what it is that we've learned from past advocacy efforts as well.
Thank you. Next up, I'd like to call on Trustee Alapa.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to know, you mentioned about the reports that you have compiled, and like to know, when will we be receiving the reports?
So
on those outreach meetings that you've done, the past, like Hawaii, Big Island, and so forth.
I wish that our chief advocate was here. I did not comment specifically on reports or written reports. I commented on the feedback that we received in real time. I want to remind the trustees in an effort to also let the community know that all of the briefing sessions are available online. So everything is available on our website. All of our resources that are relevant to this particular issue are also sitting on our landing page. So verbatim sort of video transcripts are up and available and accessible 24/7 to anybody, including beneficiaries and trustees alike who would like to receive sort of affirmation or confirmation of what we've been hearing loud and clear from our lahui. And if there are supplemental reports or written records that the advocacy team has, we can definitely follow up and provide those.
Can you share the response when you were out there in the communities from our beneficiaries? Positive, negative?
It was a mixture, but resoundingly, the reminder that these are unrelinquished rights. These are unrelinquished. We have an unrelinquished claim to these lands and to steward them as appropriately as possible, and to ensure that Native Hawaiians have a seat at the decision-making table, and to be as inclusive as possible in our decision-making with the community's participation. I think that this the PIG, the negotiating PIG, and its technical advisory group endeavors to make good on that particular feedback, and also, again, the investment of significant trust resources to see this effort advance is also an indicator of OHA's commitment. You know, we were in a meeting yesterday and I learned that there are actually 2 bills moving or that were introduced recently, very recently at the Ledge. And I think they help to crystallize why it is that OHA cannot be silent or cannot have a large footprint in this conversation. One of them is asking that government-to-government leases, which is directed at these kinds of leases that we're talking about between the state of Hawaii and the federal government, be allowed for $1. So there are lawmakers currently advocating positions that would facilitate the state entering into a lease with the federal government for $1. There is a second bill, a second measure, that is advocating for this government-to-government lease vehicle to be extended from 65 years to 99 years. These are troubling and current efforts to contravene, to upend what this, I believe, this agency proactively set out to advocate for. These are bill measures that are in direct response to our advocacy efforts, to our Pai'aina-wide community briefings, to what we are learning in real time are the legal vehicles that are being used. I'm going to use this term intentionally, but also manipulated to achieve ends that are contrary to what our responsibilities as stewards for Native Hawaiian interests require us to be or to do. So the threat is not hypothetical. The need to be advocates in this space is not hypothetical. It's urgent. This is a time-sensitive issue for consideration, and if we do not act robustly and in a way that meets the moment, then we will miss an opportunity, and I think that we'd all regret that.
Should our advocacy team handle this instead?
Our advocacy team is handling this. They are part of this PIG effort. They are actually vital and instrumental to it. I think that the price tag on this effort would be much higher if they weren't involved. I think their involvement is allowing for this particular measure to move forward at the price point it's at now. We have very skilled advocates, but they are also helping to prioritize all of the other measures and efforts in simultaneously. And I will also say that this particular issue has direct relevance to our public land trust pro rata share revenue. If we lose title to 23,000 acres at Pohakuloa because of a land exchange, or 6,000 plus acres on Oahu because of a land exchange, or 700 acres in Kauai because of a land exchange, or worse, a condemnation effort or a lease that essentially dispossesses us of prudent stewardship for 99 years, or for a return of $1, that directly affects what we're entitled to every year annually because of our advocacy in the PLT effort. So these have a lot of direct correlations to one another, these conversations, and our ability to tackle the issues and the challenges that have been systemic and historic and have sought to marginalize our interests for decades can be met with real meaningful progress if we coalesce around this issue, if we coalesce around the PLT issue, and if we engage in this legislative session with the kind of wherewithal and skill set that I think in our committee meeting just before this one, Deja spoke to. So this is very much, I think, a real nice alignment of all of those efforts coming together.
Sounds great. What I'd like to know is, as Chair Marita Hula Lindsay mentioned about the price tag of $260,000, and with the other agencies that we have supported, wouldn't it be ideal if we formed a partnership with others to help provide funds as well, so that's just not on OHA's shoulders? We're not bearing the entire brunt.
I believe the invitation for partnership is always open. I don't think that this particular action item forecloses that opportunity or intends to limit it. In fact, I think sometimes when OHA steps forward with its commitment, it encourages, it incentivizes other organizations with deep trust assets to join in. And I also think, the reason why the communication strategy is so important is because the reality is that the federal government has almost an endless resource of financial backing to disseminate its own public relations campaign, which is doing very effectively. We've seen the Star Advertiser issue surveys that suggest that upwards of 80% of our community are in favor of a continued military presence in the same fashion that it has been. And our own internal surveys of our beneficiaries suggest that 80% are opposed to sort of the military footprint that is current and status quo. And so we need to have, I think, a comms plan or a comms strategy that meets what we know is already being undertaken by the federal government and the people supporting having a continued military presence here. So I think that this number is reflective of wanting to be able to have a reliable role and space to play in the comms effort. I'm going to invite Bill Brennan, if that's okay. Yes, to speak to the communications plan.
Bill, yeah, you can come to the table. Trustee Lapa, that was your last question, right?
Well, it was going right into the communication.
Okay. And then after you, no, I'm just saying, after you, I'm going to call on, Chair Kahele. Okay, Bill?
Mahalo, trustees, for the opportunity to talk about this particular agenda item, and to you, Summer, for making an outstanding defense for the amount of funds. So I'll just address the $260,000 for the comms plan. It's just slightly more than half of the total amount being requested. I think a couple things. First of all, this is, I think the duration of the comms effort. This is not a one-time thing or something that will air in April and be done. This is an effort that will take place over the next several months into next year as the negotiations over military lands in Hawaii continues. I'm glad Trustee Ahuna brought up the John Osorio example, because this board, I think unanimously, if I'm not wrong, approved giving him $135,000 for what is no doubt a very meritorious effort on his part and his team to produce a documentary. And that $135,000, I think he made it known, was not the total amount, but just something that we could contribute to that effort. So I don't think the dollar amount that we're talking about is out of line. And the amount too is for more than just the production of a documentary. This is additional digital advertising, being online, being not only local, but perhaps national. Chair Kahele mentioned the effort that would be needed in DC, where OHA would have some role and need for partnerships and education and informational kind of sharing with people involved who may not know nearly as much as the people seated at this table and throughout the state know about this particular issue. So it's long-term, it's several components. As I say, I don't think the dollar amount is out of line, especially when you look at the John Osorio thing. And just to echo what our CEO has said, that I'm here, even Walter Riddy this morning, people our beneficiaries are demanding, they're not asking us, they're not requesting us, they're pretty much demanding that we stand up for them and be a part of this and be a strong part of this and be a financial part of this, because for the most part, they're not bringing any money to the table. They're counting on us. And I think back to when Kumu Vicky Holt Takamine was here and others who have said, look, 39 people have sent a letter to the governor telling him to go slow and this, that, and the other. And OHA, you need to be there with us and you need to be by our side and you need to, you know, basically get off your okole and stand up. And this is significant to us, and this is the time, as Chair Kahele points out. This is a once in a generational kind of thing. So, I think the sound of the dollar amount might be scarier than the actual funding. In this day and age, really, that's not a lot of money. I think too, as Chair Kahele points out, $500,000 total amount in a budget of $135 million is fractional. So I think it's money well spent. And just to conclude, as Summer points out, and I don't want to make this an us versus them kind of thing, an OHA versus the military, and two sides, but they do have unlimited resources, financial and otherwise, to tell their story. And I think this would just give us some footing to be able to tell our side of the story. Yeah, mahalo.
Oh, mahalo. Can I take him first? Can I take up Trustee Galatera, since we didn't hear from him yet?
Oh, thank you.
First.
Thank you, Chair. It's a multi-pronged approach, multi-platform, right? That's clear. Equally or even more important is to control the narrative. We have never controlled our story, and this is a way to do it. I was taking a look at, and I was wondering why Walter was coming up, and he was frankly on the wrong committee, because he should be but he had to leave.
Yeah, no, you have to leave.
Yeah, he had to leave. But he was speaking to this very budget. And so if it ever hits the table, the vote, I'm going to vote in favor of it. Because I understand messaging. And if you don't have it, and if people don't know about it, you got to be an advocate for your own story and for your own people. So certainly I'm taking a look at this price, and it's not that much, especially for the communications part of it. At what is 260,000? That's, you know, I mean, it's not, we're not nickel and diming, but it's certainly we get a lot for that amount. We just got to put our foot down and do it. So my interest is in the message. I want to know what the message is going to be, because we'll have the platform to do it, right? So I'm not asking you for the message right now. Yeah.
And Trustee, we've been going around the state holding these military lease meetings, and it has evolved.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to thank, you know, Chair for allowing us to reach our people.
Sure.
And the number one thing that we learned from Mauna Kea is we have to work with our people. And we've been doing that this whole entire time, so thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Kahele?
Thanks, Chair Ahuna, and I actually really appreciate the dialogue. Trustee Alapa, you're asking great questions. And it's important that we have this conversation, because at the end of the day, we are looking at the permanent alienation and dispossession of our current Crown and government lands from the Native Hawaiian people. The inability to access these lands for cultural purposes, for pule, for makahiki, will be at the discretion of the base commanders and of the United States military. Today, these lands are part of the state's inventory. And it is why these lands are subject to Hawaii state conservation laws, the Hawaii Environmental Protection Act, the constitutional requirement for traditional and customary practices for Kanaka to access these lands. If we lose these lands, we will never have that opportunity. Just to correct, for the record, Summer's numbers for PMRF, we're talking 8,172 lease and easement lands on the Manele Plain, the Mana Plain, that could be lost. The Congress has directed the Department of Defense to come up with an authorization that is not just for Hawaii Island and Po'akaloa. It is for all military leases across the state. We already have a Hawaii Island EIS that has been rejected and Oahu Land Retention EIS that has been rejected. The PMRF lease is still pending review by the Board of Land and Natural Resources. If that EIS, you know, is also rejected, then the military will be looking at land exchanging and permanently alienating these lands from the people of Hawaii. And so that's really important. When talking about what this board has spent money on, let's say we didn't have a pig. We didn't have a chair. We didn't have other pig members. And we just decided to outsource this to a consulting firm, which this board has done on so many different issues and spent millions and millions of dollars with zero results. That is another option. We're asking for $500,000 to be really OHA-led, pig-led, trustee-led, administration-led, and to pull together the most diverse group of subject matter experts to advise us on this particular issue. The language to begin the first draft of the National Defense Authorization Act is already starting. It is why we are having virtual meetings with members of Congress and the Hawaii delegation in February, because we cannot wait to talk to them until April. They need to know. Representative Tokuda, Representative Case, Senator Schatz, Senator Hirono needs to know what the OHA position is. Right now, they have no idea. And so that is why we have to, advocacy has to engage now. While the legislative session is in parallel to what is happening in Washington, D.C., and Summer had mentioned several bills that are not supportive of OHA's potential position. Some of the bills that we have introduced in our package are. The national conversation is happening on this issue as well, and so we have to start now. We cannot wait to do that. The communications plan. One thing that is really important to wrap your head around is truly what the Native Hawaiian community and the broader mainstream non-Native Hawaiian community feel about this issue. So this communication plan puts together a broad, comprehensive survey that will come out after the documentary, which is produced and is aired. The production of the documentary is actually not that much. I think it's like $40,000 to produce the documentary. What costs a significant amount of money is to have it on prime time, Hawaii News Now at 7:00 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And we're gonna do that over and over and over on KITV and KHON and Hawaii News Now and every mainstream media, because we need to educate not just the Hawaiian community, but the broader state electorate on this particular position. And you know, if we don't do that, then the Department of Business, Education, Development, and Tourism's macro office will. This office, created in 2024, sits within DBED. They are who ran the survey poll a few weeks ago that the Star Advertiser captured. They are planning to do, I would imagine, the same thing that OHA intends to do. And we need to make sure that the proper narrative based on facts is presented to the electorate and our community. And that's what this PIG intends to do. This is a almost year-long communications plan. And in every aspect, geo-targeted in every medium you can imagine, and that takes resources to do that. And so those are the things I wanted to just clarify in the action item. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, members. Is there anybody else that would like?
And I just want to say thank you for helping correct the record on the number of acreage in Kauai, but I also wanted to provide some real-time information that I might have inflated. The particular survey that I had referenced earlier that asked the question of, it showed that 62% of residents feel positively about the military's presence in Hawaii, with 74% agreeing that it strengthens Hawaii economy. And just to underscore the point that the ability for OHA to control a narrative that reflects what our beneficiaries are telling us about those kinds of pointed questions as well, to make sure that our beneficiary voices are being included in surveys that are widely disseminated. Those are the kinds of particular comms points that this investment will help to expand and provide a different perspective on. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I take on Trustee Akina's testimony, I just wanted to say this, that there is no action item today. It was important to hear it out. And I think I'm going to defer this till February 5th, because I am not the chair of this committee, and I would want to make sure that our chair is here to make sure that this action can be moved along. So with that, I'm just letting you guys know that we're going to be deferring this. There's no action right now, but I'll be taking Trustee Akina's testimony right now. Thank you. Trustee Akina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that, and the update that we will not be taking action today. That gives us a little more time. That's a good thing, because I think we are in agreement with what our Chair, Kahele, has shared earlier, that this is a significant moment in history. And it will shape not only the future of the Hawaiian people, Hawaii itself, but also the role that OHA plays. It's an opportunity for OHA to be on the sidelines or OHA to be in the lead. So I'm sympathetic to that position. And it is because of that, I think we need to give it the very best we have to offer. And I'm hoping that between now and February 5th, you say, we'll be able to even update the presentation today. I had a couple of questions, and then I wanted to share my thoughts. The first question had to do with the purpose that we passed BOT action item 2518 back on December 18th. I understood, and the action item said that its purpose was for negotiating the official position of OHA regarding the military leases set to expire between 2028 and 31 with the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, NASA, and so forth. Have we since then, December 18th, achieved any standing before the federal government, any of these military organizations, or the state of Hawaii, standing to represent a position and negotiate? I just would like to know if there's any update on that.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Who should I?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Chair Kai.
Can you answer that?
So yes, Trustee Kina, we have. The Congress just passed the FY26 National Defense Authorization Act, and the President signed it into law that explicitly named the Office of Hawaiian Affairs as one of two recognized Native Hawaiian organizations, the other being the Department of Hawaiian Lands, with whom the United States military must consult with on issues related to Native Hawaiian issues. Prior to that, the Department of Defense adopted a DoD instruction in 2018 that amended a previous instruction that also explicitly named the Office of Hawaiian Affairs as the lead agency on all Native Hawaiian issues when the Department of Defense has to engage with the indigenous and Native Hawaiian community. So we absolutely have standing directly at the Department of Defense, and the most recently passed NDAA codifies that.
In your informal understanding of the parties involved, are they open to recognizing that standing and honoring that they must consult with OHA?
Well, I hope so. It's federal law.
Good.
And it's signed by President Trump himself. So I would imagine that the Department of Defense would follow that directive of its commander-in-chief. Now, we intend to engage all four service branches, well, the three service branches, Army, Air Force, and Navy, along with NASA, who's really in coordination with the Navy for the land retention at PMRF on Kauai, to either reach out directly to the service secretaries or their designees, who we can start to have open communications with. And we're in the process of establishing those relationships now. We know from the governor's public messaging that there is a named three-star general at the U.S. Army Pacific that is Secretary Driscoll's designee on all Army land retention efforts here in Hawaii. And we are intending to engage with that general because he is here in Hawaii at Fort Shafter, so that we can start to develop a rapport with him so he can understand OHA. Many don't, our own people don't even understand what OHA is. So we can't imagine that a military general officer that maybe never grew up in Hawaii, that doesn't deeply understand Hawaii's history, understands what OHA is. And I think that is a starting point that will be able to better frame the issue for the military.
Thank you. I appreciate that response. My second question has to do with the budget and how it was formed. I was not aware of what Trustee Hulu Lindsay shared in this meeting earlier, that if I have this wrong, correct me, Trustee Hulu, but that the PIG is not the source of the budget, that they had not seen the budget. Am I quoting you correctly?
Yes, you're correct.
So with that in mind, I wanted to ask where the budget came from, how it was developed. I notice Grace's and Ryan's sign off on the action item. But the reason I ask this question is that in terms of the task that would have been given to the PIG to report back to the board, I think that this is too much of an outline only. Most of our budgets are far more detailed, especially budgets that involve personnel and so forth. So I just wanted to ask about the formation of this budget and whether a more detailed budget will be forthcoming upon which we can make a better judgment when we vote for the budget.
Well, I think we're gonna have this discussion, we're gonna take up this discussion on our February 5th meetings. We've heard a lot of testimony and we hear your concerns, and I think right now the budget and how we explain the budget, especially with the $260 in the comms, but I'm sure we're gonna be explaining it on the next meeting. I'm just glad it's not gonna be this one. So anybody can answer that question?
I can just answer to the particular point of your question, who helped sort of prepare the budget. It was a collaborative effort. Bill Brennan weighed in on the comms piece. Lena Alale and myself, we weighed in on the advocacy estimations. And then, of course, Grace and Ryan confirmed that there were sufficient funds to allocate to this particular effort. And we worked in coordination also with Chair Kahele to inform the contents of the action item.
Well, thank you. I'm hoping that we can get a more detailed budget because there's so many moving parts here and many qualitative decisions we need to make. Let me just share a couple of concerns I have. I'm not concerned in any negative way that we are attempting to take the role of representing the Hawaiian people. That is our fiduciary duty, and every resource that we have that's available for this should be put behind that because of the importance to the Lahui. That's our fiduciary responsibility. Because that is so important, I hope we will do this right and give it the time it needs. One of the things we voted on is that the PIG committee would report back to us regarding progress of the fulfillment of the PIG's 6 objectives to ensure continuous oversight, transparency, and alignment. I don't consider that the budget in its form today and the requests being made fully fulfill that call for oversight, transparency, and alignment. And this is not a criticism of the PIG or the leadership of the board. In fact, I'm reinforcing, I believe, what Chair said earlier about all of us needing to be invested in this. This is so important, all 9 of us need to be involved in, quote, continuous oversight, transparency, and alignment. And that, I feel, is what we need to, that's a standard we need to meet before we can vote affirmatively in February on the budget. Second concern is about the source of funds. This is not the first time that we have, in an ad hoc way, taken funds through a reallocation and labeled them surplus. Yes, historically, these funds were originally intended for employee costs, unmet positions, and so forth. And so temporarily, or at least for now, it's available cash to us. But that wasn't its original intention. And I am concerned that in the past year, we have practiced taking funds like this in order to spend. It doesn't conform to the best practice in long-term budgeting. And it also robs Peter to pay Paul because the funds were intended for other long-range purposes originally. We do need funds for this. My question is not that our fund, the $500,000 is too high. It's that we need to find the proper sustainable source of the funding. Another concern is the use of the funds. When I looked at the budget outline that is presented in today's action item, technical advisors is $60,000. Advocacy is $180. While those are not the largest categories, they're very large indeed in terms of adding to our costs. But the communications, which is $260,000, is very substantial. And this is not in any way a slight to our Bill Brenner, our communications director, but the last time we used any amount of funds that approached that and greater than that, I don't think we got the product that we wanted. I'm talking about our campaign 2 years ago in the legislature to secure a bill's passage regarding Kakaako Makai. And the public relations plan, everything from news releases to media and the production of audio video, led us to a general conclusion that OHA wasn't well represented in the message that went out to the people. But more than that, it put us at odds with the very people with whom we were negotiating at the legislature. The very nature of the message, if you recall, was a very aggressive, defensive message as it represented the Hawaiian people. So I'm cautious about a general category of money being assigned, a general amount of money being assigned to a category such as that. Now, I do have other concerns, but I don't think that it's necessary to go through them. I do want us to make a unified, good decision to represent OHA and the Hawaiian people. I want us to have a good budget on this, one that is thoroughly worked through. We need to go back to our commitment, as it says in the original plan for going forward, that the board exercise continuous oversight, transparency, and alignment with board policy. Thank you.
Trustee Aquino, thank you. We're going to be wrapping this up, but before we start wrapping it up, we have two more trustees who would like to speak, and I will be taking Trustee Souza first, and then ending with you. Okay, after Trustee Souza, I'll take Trustee Akaka, and then our chair at the end. But before we do that, I mentioned that the next meeting would be on February 5th. I think January has different types of days in that month, so it's actually February 4th. 4th is that next meeting. So with that, Trustee Souza, and nobody has to answer any more questions or anything. Just Trustee Souza, you're next.
Mauli Chair Huna, and you're doing a great job as chairman. I appreciate the discussion today, but I'm just curious because I think if the Budget and Finance Committee came here today and hearing from administration who collectively put the budget together, this action item, I think even if they asked for $1,000, we would still be questioning what's happening here, which is great, right? Which is great for our beneficiaries, right? Right, fiscally responsible. We want to make sure we're doing things right.
I give you a higher credit limit.
Right. I want you running my bank account, Trustee Aquino. By the way, so I would like to know since we're having a discussion, I know it's going to be deferred, right, the action till next week, February 4th meeting. I would like to know, just curious, maybe Chair Emerita Lindsay, what kind of number potentially? Because I know earlier you're going to amend the action item potentially. What were you thinking? I know you're part of the PIG, so I was just curious to know what kind of numbers you were thinking. What do you think is a reasonable budget?
I actually would like to have a discussion with the chair, what he was thinking when he came up with the 500,000, because it wasn't discussed in our PIG. So based on that, I want some. I think we should have a budget, no question about it. But I didn't think having been serving for 14 years, we've been hammered by our auditing department about our spending, fraud, waste, abuse. I don't want us to be attacked like that anymore. So I just want justification for what we're spending. And I thought I saw $260,000 in the packet for a video. And I think that's too much. And that's just my opinion as a trustee. I'm there to protect our corpus like all of you are, and that's just my opinion. So I would not list a number without first talking to him, because I respect him as a leader. I think he's done an excellent job in the communities, giving the people our position on these military leases. So I'm supportive of him, but I was not in support of this kind of money. So, and I will have a discussion with him.
Trustee Souza, you good? Oh, you have
I'm
any
good.
more?
Thank you, Chair Murdo.
Yeah.
Mahalo, Chair Uno.
Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I'm interested in hearing more details and to hear from continue to hear from our beneficiaries, and specifically regarding how this action item is currently written and how it can evolve over time. And I think that continuing to allow more time for our beneficiaries to be able to share their mana'o so that we can properly advocate for them legislatively in all levels of government and throughout the community is very key, because that is our role in order to meet our mission, is to hear their voices and be able to advocate as so. So I'm looking forward to hearing what more details can come from this and how we can best move forward as a unified front when it comes to advocating regarding our crown and government lands. Mahalo.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And you are the last person, but before we go, we mentioned fraud, waste, and abuse, and I believe we paid $500,000 for that audit too, so, yeah. So, Trustee.
Thanks, Chair.
Trustee,
I think two things I wanted to point out. To answer Trustee Akina's question, if you refer to Table 2 on page 10 of the action item, a pretty detailed, flushed out budget is there. So I'm asking actually for the administration, what level of fidelity and detail do you want in a budget? And I'll give you one example. In the advocacy budget, we discussed 2 trips to Washington, D.C., one in the spring and one in the fall. That is to meet with multiple members of Congress and departments to advocate for the position of OHA. That budget is $25,000. So if you just divided that in 2, that would be $12,500 for one trip. That's to fund 4 people. If you divided that by 4, that's $3,125 for one person to take a 1-week-long trip, at least 6 days, so you can accomplish Monday through Friday, walking all over the Hill to advocate. $3,125. Is that the type of detail you want, or do you want like how much the rental car is going to cost in the hotel and how much they're going to eat?
Well, are you asking me to respond?
But yeah, I'm asking you to respond because Table 2 has a budget. I want to know, like, and I think the administration will, especially the travel department, will want to know what level of detail do you want the $25,000 2-trip proposal to go to Washington, D.C. for 4 people, probably 2 trustees, members of the PIG, and 2 members of the administration.
Well, your point, if I may respond.
Please do.
Your point is well made, and you and I have a similarity. That would be the jugular we would go for if we are debaters trying to find an example that might look a little bit off. But I think that there are larger categories, as we had pointed out earlier. Where about half of this budget, more than half, is public relations and communications. And that is very general and broad in terms of what is presented in this budget. That's where we really should have a very careful breakdown. Another category having to do with the funding of a panel of experts raises questions that we have to look at in terms of conflicts of interest. Who is being hired? Who's not being hired? And so forth. So I agree with you that some of these items are pretty straightforward. Like if you're going to take 2 trips, this is what it's going to cost. And I don't think we want to ask for whether it's Motel 6 or so forth. But I think the broader categories, I hope we have agreement that we want to do our fiduciary duty
Well, we do, but I also want to make sure I'm asking for the administration who may be
Yeah.
intimidated to ask the question. So if we're going to create a 30-minute documentary and the comms team is going to purchase a 30-minute time slot on Hawaiian News Now, primetime television on a weekday night, you want to know how much that's going to cost?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that example, because that's one where the quantitative and the qualitative overlap. It's not just a decision as to a budget item, how much money we spend, but if we're talking about putting a message out in video, there are all kinds of qualitative questions, like what will be the philosophical point of view, who will be giving the message, who is the audience, and these overlap with budget, and that should be part of the decision. Budget discussions, as you well know as a legislator, are not only about the numbers, they're also about the qualitative factors, what we're looking at. So please understand, I want to support our doing our due diligence to succeed.
Well,
And
I think working with the Budget and Finance Chair, we want to make sure that we can get down to the level of detail that you want, and I'm trying to understand what that level of detail is, because this board has also passed $135 million budget and $800,000 line items with no detail. And so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
The second thing would be part of the advocacy effort. And if you look at the advocacy budget, it is to possibly complete 6 paka'akai analyses across the 6 potential land retention areas, 1 on Po'akuloa, 1 on Kauai, and 4 on the island of Oahu. That was a inadequate report that the DLNR had reported to the Army that they failed to do. Any land exchange between the state and the federal government, hypothetically, would trigger HEPA, would trigger the DLNR to have to comply with that statute. What this action item potentially allows is for the advocacy team to get ahead of that and complete 6 paka'akai analyses with a potential budget of $60,000 to complete that, 6 of them. If you were to outsource this to one of the major consulting firms, environmental consulting firms across the state to do 6 paka'akai analysis, it would cost $1 million. And so advocacy is aiming to potentially do this in-house, but it is part of the budget, but it is not firmly determined that they will do this, but we've budgeted for it in case they do decide to. So that's also part of this action item, is the Office of Hawaiian Affairs leaning forward on areas that have been deficient and delinquent in this process. And that all feeds into the community survey that we would do after the documentary airs to educate our community, then to see how they feel on this issue that can help us frame our position. And then the final thing is, you mentioned our technical advisory group. You just use a different term for it. I think you said subject matter expert, and you said paying them. We are not paying anyone. They are volunteers that are yearning to be at this board table to help us educate. We're not paying them. They're volunteering their own time. What we will pay for is their travel and their sustenance while they are dedicating hours and hours to help the permitted interaction group formulate its position. So I think that needs clarification as well. And I'll stop there, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. And I would agree with you. The Pa'akai analyses are very important. And I was actually going to ask administration as to whether they need more resources in order to do the analysis, which is very important. So I'm not opposed in any way to spending money for a good cause. But as we work together, we can fulfill each other's responsibility to our fiduciaries and do so for the Lahui. Thank you for your leadership in this.
And with that, I want to thank you all for this robust experience but we're not taking any action today, so we're gonna make sure that we move this and table it till February 4th. So thank you for all of that, and we're moving on. At this time, we're moving on to Roman numeral 4, executive session. Before we go into executive session, can I get a motion to recruit? Oh, we already have? Oh, okay. We have one testifier on this matter, so I'd like to call up Jermaine Myers.
Recording in progress. Oh, your mic.
Jermaine Myers. So, Jermaine, yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Aloha, Honorable Trustees. My name is Jermaine Myers. I'm an OHA beneficiary and Nanakuli Hawaiian Homestead lessee. I am testifying on agenda item 4, executive session, subsection A, legal matters where the OHA proposes to convene under HRS 92-5A4 regarding alleged contractual claims and demands of a former OHA contractor. Respectfully, I believe this agenda item does not comply with Hawaii Sunshine Law as it is currently written. While HRS 92-5A4 allows the board to consult with legal counsel, the law still requires that the agenda describe the subject matter with sufficient specificity to inform the public. The agenda refers only to a former OHA contractor. That is vague. Identifying the contractor would be specific. The phrase alleged contractor claims and demands is also overly general. Identifying the nature of those claims, such as whether they involve financial deliverables, performance issues, or termination disputes, would be specific. This distinction is important because OHA contracts include a wide range of agreements, including professional service contracts, event contracts, and community or program grants. Without clarity, the public cannot understand what type of matter is being discussed or why it warrants a closed meeting. Both the Hawaii Supreme Court and the Office of Information Practices have made clear that vague executive session agenda items are insufficient, even when attorney consultation is cited. Agendas must identify the specific legal matter being discussed, unless doing so would generally defeat the purpose of confidentiality. Here, no such explanation is provided. If an executive session is improperly noticed due to a deficient agenda, it may constitute a Sunshine Law violation, and any final action taken by the board could be subject to being voided. Best practices from OIP are clear. When invoking HRS 92-5A4, the agenda should state that the board is consulting with counsel regarding its powers, duties, privileges, immunities, or liabilities in connection with a specifically identified matter. An agenda cannot rely on generic language to shield the subject matter of an executive session. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the board to reconsider proceeding under this agenda item as written and to revise it to meet Sunshine Law requirements for its transparency and specificity. I also want to note a procedure concern regarding today's meeting flow. As of now, the Budget and Finance Committee meeting remains in session, and it has not yet taken up its own executive session agenda item. However, the ILM committee meeting was agendized to begin at 11 a.m. or immediately following the convening of the Budget and Finance Committee, and for the record, it's 12:10 p.m. As I stated earlier, Sunshine Law requires that meetings be noticed with a specific start time that the public can reasonably rely upon the meaningful participation. When one committee remains in session while another is noticed to begin, especially with executive session matters pending, it undermines the public's ability to know when to appear, listen, and testify, and erodes the transparency the Sunshine Law is intended to protect. Kia kuapu, God bless all of you.
Mahalo, Jermaine. Okay, with that, I would like to ask our members to resolve us into executive session for legal matters. The board anticipates convening in an executive meeting pursuant to HRS 92-5A4 to consult with its legal counsel and take any necessary actions regarding the board's powers, duties, privileges, and immunities and liabilities related to alleged contractual claims and demands of a former OHA contractor. So with that, I'd like to call for the vote.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, is it being moved? Oh, sorry.
may we ask for board counsel's guidance on the appropriateness of movement into executive session, given the testimony that was presented?
So your question is, you're asking why we're going into executive session?
No, I'm asking for board counsel's guidance at this time in light of the testimony that was just given.
It's up to you, or you can say we can move into executive session. I can provide counsel then.
Can we move into executive session and then provide counsel then?
If that's the counsel of our counsel to move into executive session, fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, is there any discussion? But we still have quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, and Hulu. Yeah. Okay, with that, call for the vote.
Trustee Akaka, Trustee Akina, Trustee Alapa, Trustee Kahele,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza, Vice Chair Ahuna.
Aye.
7 yes votes. We will get set up.
executive session.
And just read the motion.
Read the motion, call for a vote.
Okay. Tell me when you guys are ready. Aloha mai and welcome back into open session. We just had discussion in executive session, and now I'd like to make a motion to authorize OHA Board Counsel Paul Austin to obtain additional time to investigate and report back to the board regarding alleged contractual claims and demands of a former OHA contractor. There's a motion on the table right now. We already had discussion, and I want to call for the vote. Madam Secretary.
Trustee Akaka? Trustee Akina?
Aye.
Trustee Alapa? Trustee Kahele?
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay? Trustee Lindsay?
Okay, now try.
Trustee Lindsay? No. Okay. Trustee Souza?
A'ole.
Vice Chair Ahuna?
Aye.
Trustee Akaka?
Aye.
Thank you, Trustee
5
Akaka.
yes and 2 no's.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, so now it's time for adjournment. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay. We have some announcements to make. The ILM committee has been canceled for today, so this is our last meeting for today. Our next meeting is our Board of Trustee meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock. So I just want to thank you all for coming, and hopefully see you guys tomorrow.
Just to identify that in executive session, discussion was had with board counsel regarding this. Right? Even though there was a vote, you're still announcing that discussion was had.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, here we go. During our executive session, we had a discussion about the BF committee voted to authorize Board Counsel Paul Austin to obtain additional time to investigate and report back to the board regarding alleged contractual claims and demands of a former OHA contractor.
Just to clarify, you didn't vote in executive
Yeah,
session.
and we did not vote into executive session. We took this vote in open session, so that is what we are reporting for today. And is there any announcements, members? And if there's no announcements, I'd like to call for an adjournment.
Trustee Akaka?
Aye.
Trustee Akina?
Aye.
Trustee Alapa? Trustee Kahele? Trustee Lindsay? Trustee Souza? Chair Ahuna?
Aye.
7 yes votes.
It's 12:55. We are adjourned.